Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby.
Oops, I forgot to make one for Batman Returns. I was like, oh yeah, duh.
Oh.
I gotta make a new
Oh, that was
beginning.
cut short.
Yeah, I forgot. It's all shit. It's the Tremors one. Oh well. Second week or third week and we're already fucking everything up. Welcome to the show, kids. I'm Tom Connors. With me is Script Doctor. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to see so many people here today. This is awesome.
Yeah. We got quite a few of you guys in the chat here. We got Jesse hanging in there. Lindsay's hanging in there. How you doing? Punkwaddle's here. Andre Enrico. And we have so many more. Eagle Fang for life, I saw. Iron Wolf. So many more. Thank you for being here. Send out that link to all your friends and hit the like button. Yeah, Tremors Return. No, actually, we're talking about Batman Returns today, as the title says. Hey, Runner, how you doing? So yeah, and I agree. Max Mercer, Michelle Pfeiffer, well over Zoe Kravitz. So this movie got picked by you guys last week. This was your choice. We gave you a couple of Christmassy choices, and this is the one you picked. Next week we already have a movie set up. I got to double check on all that business, but we do have some plans hopefully for next week. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about some Batman Returns. That's right. So Script Doctor, first of all, what was your experience with the first Batman and then this movie as far as like how you first saw them?
Well, I saw the first Batman film in a drive-in when I was like 4 years old-ish, and absolutely loved it, of course, because it was so cool, so different. I grew up with the Adam West Batman and the Super Friends cartoons, which I still quite enjoy even to this day. And then, it was like 2 years later, and my parents and my aunt, uncle, and cousin, we all got together to go see Batman Returns, and we also, a lot of us found it was pretty awesome, but my mom and my aunt were like, that's a little bit too over the edge compared to the previous film in some cases, but they enjoyed it.
Right.
And yeah, they enjoyed it so much so that like what my cousin and myself, our collective parents did is they bought for each of us for that following Christmas the Batman Returns on VHS because we just enjoyed that movie and probably watched that tape. I still have the tape behind me and it still holds up.
Cool.
But
so how old were you when you first saw it then, roughly?
let's see, it came out in 92. I would have been 7 or 8 ish.
Oh wow. Okay, so you're a little bit younger than me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't get to see the first film in theaters. I was in trouble. I was grounded. And my punishment was not getting to see that. And so I did get it though on video that Christmas. My dad got it for me for Christmas. But Batman Returns, on the other hand, I did get to see in the theater. I think I saw it 2 or 3 times in the theater.
Oh wow.
And like Jarrett says here in the chat, I will agree. Batman Returns is probably the most underrated of all the Batman films. Now it's starting to get a little bit more love in recent years, I think. But we're going to get into all the reasons why we love it today. Maybe some of the reasons why it has a few problems. Because let's be real, this is a B-rated A movie. This was top of the line, big budget, tentpole movie, the biggest movie of the summer, probably of 1992. I'd have
47 million opening weekend.
Yeah, it was huge.
That is huge.
Let me bring up. Let's see, Batman Returns opening weekend. All right.
I think it was like 47 and a quarter or 47 and a half. Something. It was big, almost 50 million.
Yeah, it did 162 worldwide. Like you said, it did about. Let's see here. It opened on in limited opening on June 18th, but then June 19th it did 16. Its opening night. Then overall, like you said, for the weekend, around 47, actually almost 48. So that was pretty big opening for a movie at that time. And it opened right in the middle of June, not even July 4th weekend yet. So
nope, and didn't have any pandemic working against it or anything.
No. Let me see if I can bring up what else was opening at that time. I'm trying to remember. Let's see here. So I do remember the hype around it. Like there was, the McDonald's glasses. There was, I think there was obviously the notorious Happy Meals.
Yep.
And toys galore.
I've got the little Batman card that you press the button on the top, like the little micro machine, and it fires out the separation.
Right.
That was like the McDonald's toy. I actually got that on my desk right now, staring at it.
So yeah, this movie went up against movies like Sister Act, it looks like, Patriot Games, Lethal Weapon 3, House Sitter, Far and Away, Alien 3,
Mm-hmm.
Encino Man, Unlawful Entry, and Class Act, just to name a few. At least I think that's remember the top 10 in that era, it looks like. So that's kind of an idea of what it was up against. But no, Batman did very well that year. Now, notoriously, it did upset quite a few parents.
Some groups, some affiliated
Yeah.
groups with parents and teachers and things of that nature, because McDonald's was kind of like backed some of the production of this film.
Yeah, and they had the penguin on glasses. They had the toys. Now, of course, the penguin on the glasses and toys and all the coloring books and all that business didn't quite look nearly as nasty and what is the word I'm looking for? Grody, I guess.
Yeah,
they
kept him in the suit, like kind of like the formal attire stuff most of the time. They didn't put him in the giant baby onesie, which
they didn't show no crud coming out of his mouth or nothing in the toys. So
yep.
Brightburns 1985 sends in $2 and says some prefer Iron Man 3 over this as a Christmas movie. Well, that's a completely different discussion, but I would agree. Iron Man 3 has a lot of Christmas overtones to it. This one probably more so, though, maybe.
Well, it's all centers around Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is. It's a very different. Because here's the other part too. It's a different type of sequel than expected, because one of the caveats to Michael Keaton returning, aside from getting a bigger pay raise, is that this movie could stand on its own. He didn't want
that is true
depend on the first one, and he didn't want any subsequent story to be dependent on this one. So
yeah, so there really isn't nothing to tie this movie to the first one outside of characters and like a few
references.
Lines. Yeah. And I mean, the city itself looks completely different. I think Bull Welch did the design for this one. I can't remember who did the first one, but this one clearly looks a lot more
it's like early German. It's early German design, like the post pre World War II Germany design aesthetics.
Yeah, very gothic looking, but not as dark as the first film. Very streamlined, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Evenly lit. I mean, it's all on a soundstage, just like the first one.
They managed to do a lot with a lot of grays, I noticed, because like the first film was very black and brown. This movie feels very gray and silver and really wears the color of a city, as opposed to the first one seemed to wear its grime.
Well, the first one you could definitely buy in that it was that they were outside in some of the in studio stuff. This one here, you can tell they're always in a studio. There's just something.
I think it adds to the aesthetic, though.
Yeah,
I think it does, because
there's a stillness in the background, even though things are moving. It doesn't seem to have the same.
And I guess it wouldn't be an Art Deco design. What would it be? I guess you're right. More pre World War.
Well, I don't know what that era would be. There's a word that's used. Let me quickly look it up.
Because the first film probably had more Art Deco design. This one has more.
Weimar, Weimar, like the Weimar Republic is the culture of reference that they used for this, for the setting, for some of the clothes and fashions. That was what they based this interpretation of Gotham off of.
But yeah, you also get more than just the Batman Bruce Wayne character. You know, you get introduced to two other new villains, as we talked about. And of course, I don't mean just Catwoman. I was just going to say Catwoman's more of an anti-hero. So we also have her in that role, because really the only time she goes villainous is for the 5 minutes that she's working with the Penguin and the whole ordeal with the tree ceremony. After that, and before that, she's pretty much doing the same shit Batman is.
Well, she's doing her own thing. Like
I mean, she's out there kicking ass, and and she helps Batman at the end. So it's all kind of like there's only the one time where she does anything real bad outside of blow up the mall, which is Max's mall anyway. So what difference does it make? So like again, like watching it now as compared to when I was a kid, of course I picked up on a lot more stuff. And I don't mean like the adult jokes, because I was old enough at that time to pick up on all of those. But what I picked up on more was just little things and how poetic some of the dialogue is in this film, especially compared to the first film.
Oh yeah.
It's very tongue in cheek, and maybe that's one reason why you gravitate towards it as a writer, because I can tell whoever wrote this script loves dialogue.
Oh,
And
Daniel Waters.
Yeah, and they love to write. I don't know what you would call it, but like even the Penguin, especially in his dialogue, is like, he's very poetic in the way
Well, he's
he
got
talks.
some poetic and innuendo.
Innuendo, but it's also not just that though. It's like, like just the way he talks and the way he speaks, even before he's up there to be a mayor, like just when he's talking to Max and stuff like that, the way he speaks, it's very different. I noticed stuff that I didn't notice as a younger viewer, right? Like, and now looking at it as an acting choice that Danny DeVito made, perhaps, or the script actually wrote it as, and I'm sure it's the script because other people speak this way too. It's a lot of like, I don't want to call them one-liners, but like even got like Catwoman. I didn't even notice it till this time when Selena says it's going to be a hot time in the cold town tonight, which of course Arnold Schwarzenegger steals later on.
Yeah. But that's like drawing a little bit from like pulpy dialogue and radio.
Even like you, Max, are well respected, and I, to date, am not. Like little things like that. It's very Shakespearean, yes. Like the way he is speaking, especially the Penguin, and even before, because when he becomes the mayor, it's much more boisterous and still poetic. Pontification. Thank you.
Yeah, it's poetic aspects, and it's also got like this great type of like. There's like a classiness to it. It's trying to be like a classic film in modern day. With
Do you think part of that is the character trying to act like he's supposed to be upper class?
Well, I mean, he comes from an upper
class.
That's
what I mean.
So
exactly.
He's trying to embrace his birthright, so to speak, and that's probably one of the thematic aspects to his dialogue. Is like, he already knows who he is, and he's kind of pulling one over on Max Schreck, and Max Schreck is pulling one over on the Penguin, and there's a lot of duplicity here. But it's all about like just these two guys who are playing a role for their own nefarious means.
Well, everybody in this movie is duality. That's what the whole movie is about. Every single character has two people to them. You have Max Schreck, who has his public image and then his real image. Then you have, of course, Selena Kyle, who has actually 3 different images. Then you have, and then of course the Penguin.
Well, she goes through 3, but she lands on 2, which is exactly. I mean, that's one of Tim Burton's kind of flaws, is that he only stops at 2 when it comes to his characters. He doesn't go for like the 3 facets of a character, which is your public life, your private life, and then the life that you have. Because like your private life could just be by yourself, but then you have the one that you can't escape of, which is usually like with your parents or with your family, where no amount of tricks you do will ever make you appear differently to them. And that's kind of what Tim Burton never really got to, because I think he had a strained family life. But in this one here, like Selena Kyle, she starts as like the mousy secretary who wishes she had confidence, gets reborn, and then has the confidence as secretary, and then like super confidence and violence as Catwoman. And then she's trying to reconcile those two things.
And every man in her life
treats her like garbage.
Literally drops her.
Yeah, literally.
I noticed that time too. This time too. Max does it, Batman does it, and the Penguin all do it. And I think that's why, because like when I was
younger,
the
guys and her boyfriend on the answering machine.
That too, even like metaphorically, because I think this time watching it, like as a kid when she screams and shatters all the glass, I was just like, oh, it's just a cool moment because she was pissed or whatever. This time I'm like, no, she's doing that because this is the 3rd guy now to fucking do that to her, because she makes that point earlier in the film. Yeah, when Batman does it. So I think that's why she's fucking screaming, because she has just fucking had it at this point with everybody and everything.
Yep.
And like I just picked up on little nuances like that this time around, as opposed to the first time. And again, like even Batman, of course, we know the duality. He's the one who gets the shaft this time, character-wise. Bruce Wayne does not hardly exist.
He's a functional character. He's not doing anything else. Yeah. He has nothing to. I mean, the closest we get with him is that he's kind of falling in love, and like almost like a real love in comparison to what he's doing with Kim Basinger, where that's just kind of like a situational thing, and he's just kind of playing
kind of superficial-ish, and
a bit superficial. And then this one here is like there's something he becomes a little honest.
There's an understanding there that isn't there with Vicky, because Vicky doesn't have the duality that he has, and I think that's why he gravitates to her. Yeah,
there's that. It's not only just the duality, but like Vicky Vale doesn't know who he is at first, then shows interest in him, and then kind of like is blown away by the fact that he's Bruce Wayne. When he meets Selena Kyle, she's already done her transformation, and she one-ups him in every scene that they're in. Like he's thrown off by her, like as Bruce Wayne. Because he meets her first as Batman, and he's like, okay, this is just a woman who I'm saving at this point in a very cool and clever way. But then as Bruce Wayne, he's kind of like blown away. Like she makes an impact on him, and Vicky Vale didn't really make an impact on him in the first one. He was just like, oh, she's hot, and I'm gonna follow her. And this one here is like, oh, she's hot, she's witty, and she managed to get me out of a meeting to help her boss without even me realizing it until I'm already in the elevator and the doors are closing.
Well, like that was more so he realized they didn't have their date set because he was already getting kicked out when she showed up. But yeah.
Like he was just, she whisked him away, and he had to catch up to that point. I'm like, that's a cool character.
She was way ahead of him.
Yeah, way ahead of him. Because that meeting there is facilitates the entire reason why Max Schreck is doing what he's doing. And for those that haven't seen this movie, like, go check it out. It's worth your time.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd be here if you haven't seen it already, but yeah.
Yeah, but the plot is kind of contrived, but basically Max Schreck is wanting to build a power plant that actually, he solves the greatest problem we have with energy. He's found a way to store it for decades. And that's what his power plant is going to do. It's a giant capacitor of sorts. It's siphoning off power from the other power plants, and he's going to hoard it. And then when the city needs power, or the rest of the state needs power, he's going to sell it for a much, much higher price and make massive fortune. And the only thing that's holding him up is basically some permits that are needed by the city, and that's why he wants to get rid of the current mayor who's already shut him down. And he's trying to he's doing trying to arrange for a recall of the election. The next step, he's going to Bruce Wayne for financing support to kind of grease the wheels, so to speak, for the mayor, and Bruce Wayne's not having any of it. And now he has this
public support.
He has this mysterious Penguin Man who is challenging the mayor. So he's basically going to be Max's puppet. So he figures, I get Penguin into the mayor's office, he signs off my power plant, I'm way to go. But Penguin has his own plans as well, because he's head of the Red Triangle Gang, a former circus performing act that has gone criminal, and they terrorize Gotham. And right in that first act,
he's lying to Schreck from the start, because he tells him he just wants to find out who his parents are, and Batman's right. He already knows who his parents are. He just wants access to those records so he can get every.
He wants revenge on the Silver Spoon kids that would have ostracized him had he grown up in that society.
And got what he didn't get. So like you said, everybody's got their own little plot and plan, except for Selina, who she's just kind of chaos incarnate. And she's just kind of there blowing up everybody's plans.
She's liberated. She's liberating herself from the people that are putting her down. And oddly enough, the only person that doesn't do that is Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
because here's the interesting dynamic in comparison to other superhero films, is that Selina Kyle is more enamored with Bruce Wayne than she is with Batman. Like, she does find Batman something to her, but like, she doesn't like, when she realizes that Batman and Bruce Wayne are the same person, she's like, I would love to live in your palace in a fairy tale, but she just can't do that because she's still dealing with her own personal demons and whatnot, and she's willing to take it that way. And it's just, there's really interesting dialogue back and forth. I think Michael Keaton has better chemistry, or at least gives better chemistry to Michelle Pfeiffer than she does back to him. But when they are on screen, there is some nice sparks there.
No, I think that's a good point, because you're right, she is more enamored with Bruce Wayne than she is with Batman, which I think also takes him by surprise as well. And they do have that really great meet cute moment where he's like, I mistook me for somebody else, and she's like, you mistook me for somebody else, you mean? He's like, yeah, I mean, that's what I said, isn't it? And they have that little moment, and just like the whole idea that, like you said, she fucking hates Batman because he's one of the guys that dropped her. And then when they realize that they're who they are, and of course there's always that tension where they kind of know up until that moment, but it's that moment with the dialogue with the
awesome moment where that moment where they're dancing at the party, and they're dressed to the nines. Bruce Wayne's not wearing a mask. Of course,
that's the whole. Yeah, neither one of them are wearing a costume, but everybody else is. Yeah.
And at the same time, like Tim Burton like makes that implication, like, oh no, the normal clothes, that is their costume. It's like, well,
Right.
okay, sure thing there, little
No,
boy.
no, this movie
Yeah.
is very heavy-handed in that stuff,
Yes.
but you know what? I don't mind it. Like, it's
Oh no,
part of the aesthetic, like, just
they
like the
lean into
plot.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, just like the plot is very comic booky. Penguin's plot is very comic booky. Max's plot is very comic booky. You know, the only things I think that were kind of like Bruce Wayne gets the shaft, like I said. Selena, I feel like there should have been something there because watching it now comparatively to when, when I was a kid, when I wouldn't have gave a shit. Now seeing it when she comes up there and she starts kicking the shit out of Batman, it's like, yeah, they should have set something up like prior to this, like she had been taking like a bunch of self-defense classes and all this kind of stuff. And even though she was mousy, she just never really let that out. You know what
No,
I
there's
mean?
like stuff in the background of her apartment that shows that she had athleticism.
They should have done a little bit better because like watching it this time, I still felt like that was a little out of left field. Because I mean, the crazy part, fine. But for her to be able to come up there and hold her own against Batman when she was mousy for the first 20 minutes of the movie, it's
I don't even know if she really held her own. Like she was just kicking at him, and he was
no,
just
she
like
kicked his
knocking her
ass.
away. And then
No,
about
she
one
kicked
time,
his ass.
and what scene is that? On the roof?
Yeah, she got him knocked down, and then the only reason he got away is because he napalmed her ass.
Oh no, like he got like he was placating her at first, then she got a good kick in, and then he hit her, and then
Plus,
she
he got her in the side, or she got him in the side. I mean,
well that was the later on, yeah.
no, that
That's
was all
after
that one
seducing
fight.
her.
Yeah,
No, he got him in the side, kissing under the mistletoe, right?
they both got injured in the same fight. The second fight they meet is not as bad. That's the one where she just gets him on the ground, and because he
And
gets
licks his
blown back
face, right?
and licks his face. That's right after that's after the
The Ice
Christmas
Princess,
tree. Yeah,
yeah.
that's all she does there. And
Because
then
she flips him when she like goes on the ground and says, "I'm a woman," and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize." And then she uses her feminine wiles to throw him over the edge.
she does for a bit there, but then she gets his better of him through that. Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
But she's also still holding her own to a point where it's just like, yeah, just like have like a couple of things to show that she'd taken like some self-defense classes or something would have helped. But again, these are just minor.
that's all
nitpicks.
background stuff too. Like that's
Yeah.
like on her walls or put like when she breaks her dollhouse. Like there's little trophies back there.
I'll have to double check again because I didn't really
Yeah.
notice any of that.
But no, I mean it's not hand fisted over that she can do all that stuff. Yeah.
But I can see like if she's got like gymnastic trophies and stuff, that would make some sense. Like especially the flipping and stuff. Munchkin sends in £5 and says, "How do you think Colin Farrell's Penguin will compare to Danny DeVito's?" Oh, I think Colin's will suck compared to Danny's.
I mean, they're completely different interpretations of the character. I mean, basically, Colin Farrell is playing Richard Kind. Like that's like that's how I see it. It's like
That's
why
what he looks. I mean,
the way he looks, he kind of sounds a little bit like him. Like the voice is just not as high pitched.
yeah.
But I don't know. It's a different interpretation. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, rumor has it it's going to be a 3-hour film. So.
Oh Lord. Oh, I heard they're debating between two different cuts right now too. Is the latest rumor. So who knows? But I think Danny DeVito's Penguin, obviously, like script said, is two different ones. But so far, what I've seen out of Colin Farrell's, I'm not really sold on it. I wish they would have gone more along like the lines. Like that was one of the things out of the Gotham show that I actually liked was the Penguin character. Like I feel like if you're not going to go with the Danny DeVito route, that's the route to go. The way they did. Because I love the Penguin taking over the city as a mayor has been a popular
back from the 60s.
yeah, very popular storyline in the Batman stories for many times over. So like that kind of a thing is nothing new, and that's what I love that they brought that to this story. And I'm having a feeling we'll see some of that maybe through Colin Farrell's Penguin. But yeah, like script said, they even did it back in the 60s TV show. And I think they even didn't they do it once in the animated show too, even though it was the same Penguin-ish. It's kind of like a amalgam between this Penguin and the original Penguin in the animated show.
Oh, and the 92 animated one, yeah, they did bridge it a little closer. But they did this one where Penguin is reformed, and then he's friends with a socialite who, just wanted to be liked. And she actually did like him, but then, she let her socialite friends kind of influence her negatively, and that kind of unlocked him going back to crime. Good episode. I can't remember the name of it, but I think
It's been so long since I watched any, and it's like I know that the television show kind of half-ass pretends like the movie happened, but doesn't. The movies happen because they're kind of spun off, but they're not. They're in their own little universe.
it's kind of like it's a reflection. It's a mirror reflection. They debuted the
Yeah.
same year. Like the movie came out in the summer, and then the animated series came out that following fall.
As Batman Returns, yes, I remember.
Yeah.
It was a big deal.
It was.
And,
Oh yeah.
And they borrowed some of the aesthetics, but other than that, like I don't think
They made Selena Kyle blonde, just like Michelle Pfeiffer, because normally she's a brunette.
And her costume was a little closer to the movie, and like we said, they kind of bridged the Penguin style between Danny DeVito's and the original. But I think Colin Farrell's going to go with a little bit more classic Penguin, which I'm sure he'll do fine. He's a great actor.
He
I'm
is.
not worried about that part, but I'm just not sure what they're going for with this movie, and I have a feeling overall the movie might not be that great. We keep hearing about more and more villains being in it now, so who knows? But we'll see. I mean, that's all we can really do at this point.
Yeah.
But Danny's is going to be hard to top because I feel like he's a very underrated, I should say, version of the character. I know a lot of people don't like that version, but I actually like it quite a bit. Mexican Iron Man says, never was a Tim Burton fan, but then I loved this movie. I still wonder why, but loved it then and loved it still. Hail to my great brothers. Well, thank you, Mike. That's funny because this is probably the most Tim Burton of the Batman movies.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah.
Because he didn't like Sam Hamm's original script for the sequel, and he wasn't too thrilled with the first one, but I think John Peters told him he had to stick with the first one because he wanted to rewrite the original Batman that he was directing, but was told no.
I wonder if the scene with the gang where they all have ninja weapons is a crack at John Peters.
Well, ninja, they have nunchucks, swords, and then a bazooka, right?
And then the chick has the dog.
Yeah. And the chick has the dog, yeah.
And the dog's the batarang.
Dog gets it just like it's fetching a bone. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, "What the fuck?"
but the funny part is that even though it's nice to actually see another use of a batarang, because you don't really get much of that in later Batman films. But I like that one there. He uses it on the villains, and they snatch it away, and then they use that as evidence against him to frame him for the murder of the Ice Princess. And then you just show how gullible Gotham City is.
I play this city like a harp from hell. Shit. That's the other part is people have a problem sometimes with the Penguin taking over the Batmobile.
Yeah, how do you found the blueprints? They're good looking blueprints in that shot.
I'm not sure where he got what from, but yeah.
Well, the joke is it's you flush it, I flaunt it type of thing, and you're supposed to infer that that's how he got the blueprints. But it's Batman would never shred and flush those down his toilet or
he might have. Maybe Alfred did. And that's the other crack I love in the movie. I'm not the one who let Vicky in the Batcave.
Yeah. Because she had no idea he was Batman until Alfred let her in, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm just sitting there working. Then one day, oh, hi, Vicky.
Come on in. How are you?
Which I love because I know that was something that some of the people really had an issue with in the first film. So I love that they made that little crack.
Yeah, and I like the fact that it added they gave a lot of more comedic notes for Michael Keaton to play off of. Like the whole, he's eating the soup and he's like, it's cold. It's like, it's fishy swear. It's supposed to be cold. He just stares at him blankly. He's like, oh, okay.
Just start eating it. It's just like, whatever. No, I know they give Michael a lot to do in this movie compared to the first movie. As far as comedy wise, but character wise, I can see why the critics were harsh on that aspect of it looking back, because this movie did critically get slammed.
Oh yeah.
The first film, for the most part, critics enjoyed it. Even if they didn't enjoy the story aspect overall, they gave it credit for being, a grown-up Batman and all that business. This time around, I mean, the critics were calling it grotesque and nasty, and they didn't too many bad guys, and Michael Keaton was never in it, and it's like, oh, it's supposed to be called Batman, but no Batman in it. And they're not wrong. I mean, after his first appearance in the beginning of the film, he don't show up till almost a half hour into the movie again.
Yeah, like he's got his opening thing, and then the next appearance is after Catwoman shows up.
Like 56 minutes in, I looked.
Yeah, and that's when like him and Penguin square off, and it's like, oh, why are you? Like, why are you here? It's like, who are you? Why are you here? It's like, I'm observing the destruction, mayor stuff. And Batman's
Yeah,
like,
he's doing
okay,
mayor
what?
stuff. Yeah, I love that bit. He's like, I'm surveying the damage.
Yeah, I mean, and then I also like, their conflict at the end where Penguin's like, you're just jealous because I'm a certified freak and you have to wear a mask, and Batman's like, you might be right.
Oh, the Penguin's got some great lines in this too,
Yeah.
of course. Then the one scene that stuck out to me is a little bit like awkward, I guess is the best way to put it. There's some awkward bits with Michael Keaton, and I understand now going back why he probably saw himself in these movies and he's just like, I can't do this shit no more. Because like specifically the scene where they're talking, the one we were just talking about, because they're just standing there on a fucking street corner.
Yeah.
It's just like, what the
outside
fuck?
of a Max Shrek mall.
Not even on a ledge, not even on some steps, just on a fucking street corner. And then here comes fucking Catwoman. She goes meow, and they show like 2 or 3 shots of Michael Keaton just looking completely fucking confused. And I'm just like, why did Tim pick those shots? Like, there's some of the worst shots you could have ever used for Michael, because they're at the worst angle. They make his face look the worst. So I'm like sitting here thinking, God, now I know why Michael Keaton got to a point where he's just like, I can't fucking look at myself doing this shit anymore. I look like an idiot. Because like there's some shots in this movie where I'm just like, even though they're on a set, it should help. It's not helping. It's not helping at all. Like, I don't know if it's the way it was lit, if it was what it was, but there's just a few bits in this movie where I can totally see where some of these actors got to the point where they felt like complete morons running around in these outfits. Because it just maybe it was just the background or the way that Tim shot it, but it just looks horrible. But other than that, I mean, the rest of the movie looks amazing, like I said, and there's some really cool shots, of course, other than that. But like, there's just a couple of those scenes where I'm just like, yeah, I can kind of understand now why Michael Keaton was probably just, no, I'm done with this business.
Well, he wasn't done until the third film. He wanted to
Yeah,
do
but he
like,
talked about how stupid it was, or how he felt being stupid in the outfit, and
yeah,
all that
he's
stuff.
wanted changes to the outfit, which they were going to do. I remember reading about that. In which case he said, okay, I'll do it, but we got to make sure the script is good. And then they were writing like kind of like a companion origin backstory film, which Keaton pitched and wanted to do, and Burton was on board for that. And then, unfortunately, the backlash of Batman Returns from some of those parent groups and whatever
Yeah,
basically may force Warner Brothers to say, okay, Tim, we can't have you direct. We have to believe you as a producer, but we can't have you direct. We need to take a different direction. And that's when Keaton said, well, if you're going in a different direction, is it going to be this, or what is it going to be? And it's like, well, we're going to go a bit more on the family friendly side of things. And he's like, I'm out. Like, I'm not going to be able to explore this character in any fun way if it's going to be too family kid friendly, or if it's going to be too much like the Adam West show or something. Like, he just said, I'm out. I'm done with it. I don't dig that. and he left, and they brought in Val Kilmer. And sadly, like this sequel, I mean, poor Billy D. Williams, he was excited for Batman Returns because the first draft had him. So for those that may not know, Christopher Walken's character of Max Shrek was originally going to be Harvey Dent, and not going to be the tycoon of an industry, but just going to be a DA that's falling for the corruption because Penguin's kind of breaking him. Which that type of story was kind of borrowed and rewritten and updated for The Dark Knight to a degree. I mean, just aspects of it were borrowed. Everything else was pretty much wholly it's Nolan and Goyer and Nolan at that point. But that was like the plan, is that Billy D. Williams would come in and he would be transformed into Two-Face during the Christmas holidays type of thing. But Tim Burton didn't like Sam Hamm's sequel script with that. And so he brought in Daniel Waters to rewrite it. And basically all of the Two-Face lines that would have happened, that Billy D would have said after he transformed into Two-Face, went to Max Shrek and were rewritten to fit the, corporate mogul, like pseudo Lex Luthor type guy that his character is.
Yeah, most of that I knew too. The other side of the Tim Burton story I heard is they sat there and they had a meeting and he had all these ideas and shit for the third film, and they kept shooting shit down. And then he's like a half hour in and he just goes, you guys don't want me to make this movie, do you? And then they're like, no, that's not it at all. We're just thinking maybe there's something else you'd like to do.
I mean, it did lead to him doing Ed Wood, so
yeah, they didn't want to flat out tell him no from what it sounded like, but he got the hint and he's like, yeah.
Well, they didn't even sign him they didn't sign anyone to a multi-picture contract. That was the thing. They only got a single picture deal for Batman.
Yeah.
And then they signed him to what became Batman Returns. And that was also a single picture deal. And Warner Brothers got really upset because Michael Keaton, I think, allegedly got $11 million to do that role, and Burton signed off on it with all of his co-producers as well. And the studio was like, "That's way too much," but Burton argued he was worth every penny, so you better give. And then he had to wear like a 55-pound suit, so you better give him that cash. And then that was like one of the first red flags because they were worried they were going to go over budget. Because I think the budget for this film was like $60 million.
For this one or the
Batman Returns? Yeah.
I don't think it was that much.
I mean, it was a little bit more than the previous one, but
the first one wasn't even that much either.
Yeah.
They got an $80 million listed budget for this. What the fuck? Where did they
that must have
spend
been
that?
You know what? I bet I know exactly where they spent that. They had to ship over king penguins and put them up in a refrigerated warehouse for like 6 months.
And we did discover as we were setting up for this, because I watched the 4K version of this earlier today, and I noticed some shots that just looked a little soft. And I had posited to script that maybe there was some early CGI compositing done, not actual computer generated images per se, but
like computer assisted layering. Yeah.
So what we did find out is not only was there that done, but there was actually the other too. But so like that, I'm not surprised about. But like, so yeah, so some of the shots for the penguins were composited and done digitally, and so were some of the bat shots and stuff like that. So that I guess is a kind of this would be the first time, I guess, even it would predate Jurassic Park for realistic animals, because even though you can't really see them, there's the bats and the penguins. So really, I mean, they're far long shots, but hey, it is what it is. Maybe that's where some of the money went, because they were trying to do that, but I can't believe they would spend that kind of money. It's got to be the cast, first of all. I bet you most of that went to the cast.
Well, it was the cast, I think. So Catwoman's costume they used like over 60 costumes, and each one cost $1,000.
Yeah,
so, I mean, that's not a whole lot of money overall, but that's still like a fair amount. They had to
build 3 costumed characters, though. That does probably add up.
That does add up. You also have a set that was detachable, so that they moved and reconfigured that set multiple times a week, and that takes a lot of money on labor. Then you have I think the whole Batmobile effects cost quite a bit of money, because that's a third Batmobile that they built, the design, the breakaway design. Like, that's a miniature, of course. But like they had to build that one.
Didn't they build the whole new Batmobile for this movie though?
Well, they used the same one, but they built it safer and better, so it wouldn't fly when you went over like 40 miles an hour. Because it was completely encased around the chassis. So if you traveled more than 40 miles an hour, the entire body of the Batmobile would start to rise up, because it would catch the wind like an airplane.
Well, not just that, it couldn't turn, because I know that was part of the joke with why it had the grappling hook in the first movie.
No, it couldn't do a proper turn. I think wheels could only go like 20 degrees.
Well, because they said they had to do it like because it couldn't go around the corner. It kept missing the corner, so they had to have the cable, so they run it around the corner. Well, then somebody said, why don't you just have it to where the Batmobile shoots out a cable? So they shot it in second unit with the cable shooting into the thing, whatever,
and then it detaches, they could go away. Yeah But the new one could do a lot of stuff. I mean, they built that. I mean, that one scene in the opening act where the Batmobile rises and then spins around and then it uses its exhaust to set that devil criminal on fire. That's in camera. The car doesn't drive away in that shot. They cut to another model of it. But
because wasn't that like a half a car or something? Because I thought I remember seeing that on the special features.
Yeah, like that car only does like one function, which is it rises, it rotates, it and it rises down, and that's it. They spent a lot of money on that. I mean, it's a simple mechanism, and it's like it's a shell on top of whatever that gear is.
But really, if Christopher is right here, this sounds about right. With inflation, that puts it right in the region of a Marvel movie.
Yep.
So, I mean, the movie didn't make nearly as much as I'm sure Warner Brothers was hoping. Now this is a totally different box office than I had before. The other one was like missing $100 million. This one says 266 million.
For worldwide?
I think this says US dollars, so I think it's worldwide, but yeah, I think that's the worldwide number. That sounds more like it.
So yeah, $250 million. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's really good for early 90s.
Considering there wasn't jack shit out otherwise that summer. It was pretty quiet summer. From the movies I said, none of them were that big. Not nearly in the same boat. So no, I mean, and then of course, one person we haven't talked too much about, even though we keep bringing him up, but Christopher Walken's portrayal in this film I thought was excellent.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get talked about enough.
Burton didn't want him. He wanted David Bowie, and a couple other people. And the reason he didn't want Walken is because Walken scared the crap out of Tim Burton. And
Bruce Wayne just like Batman.
Like, because he is Batman, you moron. It's like, bang,
Yeah. Oh, he's great.
But yeah, like he's apparently like I guess from some of other appearances that Walken has done that Tim Burton saw in theaters, he was like freaked out by him. But apparently they must have had a good time shooting this movie because Walken was brought back for a couple others Tim Burton films.
He seems like the kind of guy that, like, even though he'd be kind of intimidating on screen, he's probably really funny and likable in real life. It seems like he seems like he has a great sense of humor.
Jokes.
Exactly.
Every city he goes to, he does a practical joke where it's his birthday, but it's not actually his birthday, so they buy him a cake.
I'd say it seems like he has quite the sense of humor.
Yeah,
from some of the shit I've seen him do.
But he plays the role straight too. Like, that's what's awesome. He plays that role incredibly straight. He doesn't lean into any sort of jokes, even though he's got some. He plays it cold and straight. It's really cool.
Believe it or not, though, this was my introduction to Christopher Walken. I had not seen him in anything prior to this, and looking at his filmography, I can see, wow, because a lot of these things I didn't see till way later. Even though,
like the Dead Zone would be like his
like Dead Zone and the Deer Hunter and shit. Like, but no, I mean, like, look at, I mean, it's like, what did he do? Not work for a while or something? Because I don't remember him until after this movie, and then he was everywhere. But like, no, he worked steadily.
He was a Bond villain, yeah.
He just wasn't in shit I ever saw. That's all.
Yeah,
that's really what it was until later on. But yeah, he's in A View to Kill, Dead Zone, Pennies from Heaven, Dog of War, Heaven's Gate.
I think he's in Annie Hall as well.
Yeah, I think so. Annie Hall, Deer Hunter. Yeah, stuff I never would have seen prior to Batman Returns, Biloxi Blues. Stuff I would have watched later on, though. King of New York, of course. All after. But yeah, like, I was like, oh, because maybe this was like a resurgence in his career or something. But no, like, that's why. Just stuff I'd never watched.
He started in a different genre and then kept going, yeah.
No, so like, I mean, I can see why him doing this was kind of a big deal now in retrospect, right? Like,
yeah,
this is almost like the equivalent of bringing Brando into Superman.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's the same thing with Danny DeVito and Jack Nicholson, which were good friends, and DeVito took the role because Jack said he had a great time doing Batman and also made a ton of money as well.
I remember people were talking about that the weekend that Batman came out, right? Like, everybody was like, okay, now that we know there's going to be a sequel, Danny DeVito has to play the Penguin. Like, that's what everybody said. I remember, I think there was like newscasters and stuff saying that stuff. Oh, so it was like, that was like, everybody's like, oh, we got to get the Danny DeVito to play the Penguin. Yeah. Danny DeVito to play the Penguin. I remember everybody talking about that right away when it came out. So that was like a no surprise, but then to have the Catwoman in it too was a bit of a surprise. And I don't think, I mean, I loved the aesthetic they used to sell this movie. You had the bat, the cat, and the penguin. It was the three animals. It was, and again, this movie has a pretentious nature to it, but I love it. It relishes in itself. It has a tongue-in-cheek nature to it that the first film didn't have. And I think a lot of the other films tried to do that, but they come off as more campy. Like, because this movie is just that step away from being campy.
Yeah, it's pretty. I would say if the subject matter of the jokes weren't a little more lewd, were a little less lewd, maybe. It just kind of skirts that line. Yeah, because like, even if you want to try to go back and argue that the William Dozier Batman 66 Adam West thing was campy, there's a lot of innuendo in those in the jokes that they have that are just, it's way above. It's not even obvious, like even to like most adults, it's way above in there. Like, but the jokes are really clever and they're kind of universal. But like here in Batman Returns, it has like that same thing. But the context, like for the Penguin, a lot of his humor is very sexually driven because he's a sexually repressed man.
And there's tons of stuff for him. Yeah, like very incelish stuff for sure.
Yes. And then for like Maxwell Shrek, his innuendo is really just kind of like just being a sexist, and like kind of a vicious corporate, mogul. And then Catwoman's is all about kind of like playing around with that femme fatale archetype in this.
Yeah, because one of the best scenes in the movie is when you got Danny and Chris going back and forth in the sewer for the first time.
Yep.
And he's like, what about all that toxic waste you've been dumping? And he's like, yeah, anybody could dump that. You can prove that. Well, what about the documents that link you to it? And he's like, well, if any documents should exist, and I'm not admitting that they do, I would have had them shredded.
and then he just pulls them out.
He's like, a little tape and a lot of time.
Yeah. And then he's like, what happened to your old partner?
He's on extended vacation. Doing well, thanks.
Hi, Max. Remember me? I'm Fred's hand. Yeah. And then he uses that hand to shake it on a deal, and then leaves the thing against. It's like, oh, it's sick and disgusting, but it's also quite.
It's a beautiful scene, though, right?
Yeah.
Like,
because even you, as the audience, don't register it until it's too, because you forget he has flippers. And so, yeah, it's quite something.
Yeah, I love that bit. That whole scene is very well crafted, and just he's like, just how the Penguin, and I get it. Like I can buy that. That's possibly how he got all the stuff he got, and and he clearly has his own motives from the very start. He's lying to Max, and of course Max isn't really lying to the Penguin per se. He just has his own motives. He's not letting the Penguin in on, and so you have again a lot of that duality in between each other, right? Like even in all the characters, and then. And Catwoman kind of comes into the mix as well. Like her whole thing is she just wants Batman, right? She don't give a shit what it takes. She just wants to take Batman down and make him a villain, right? And
well, I mean, she wants to do that because she figures kind of a little bit of revenge for because she was trying to take down Max Shrek, and Batman kind of got in her way a little bit.
Yeah.
Like even though she blew up his mini mall, is like he hasn't really done much to her after that, like other than throwing like an explosive napalm device at her arm too, so he can be freed.
No, but he got in the way of, like you said, and that's part of it.
He's gotten away and being like considered an oppressor to her from her perspective. And then after she joins that plot to kidnap the Ice Princess, she gets all really upset that Penguin throws her off of a building.
Yeah, it wasn't to kill her. It was just to,
scare her. He's like, she looked pretty scared to me.
Yeah, and the whole thing was just to make it look like Batman kidnapped her, which they did. They managed to do. So, like at that point,
and then he escalated it with the the good old lawn dart joke, right?
Yeah.
The umbrella loaded with bats, and I do like. Yeah, it's cool. I like the fact that Gordon leads a squad of guys to the roof, and the first thing he says like, "Hold your fire," and they're just like blasting him like right away. Yeah,
because that's the scene where right after he falls, she jumps on top of him, kisses him, and then they flip each other around, and But no, like that's the thing is I like you brought up the whole oppression part. They did a very good job of playing her as a pro-feminist Catwoman without being overly melodramatic and a man hater and like they would now, right? Like if they took that now,
she would never be interested in Bruce Wayne. No. That's the thing.
No, it'd be basically like you're right. It would be like Birds of Prey all over again, basically. She would be like a man hating, and it'd be so obnoxious.
Because the first man she attacks is not a good man. Like he's assaulting a woman. And she's like, saying, you're a woman doesn't mean you have to be helpless. You don't need to.
That's the best part too.
Yeah,
exactly. Because now if they'd have done that, she'd have been like, "Oh yeah, you're the victim here, and you poor thing," and da 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 da. And like, no, I love that. She's like, it's your fucking fault too.
She's like, you just can't be a victim. You got to at least try.
Yeah.
And I mean, whether or not that character was trying, we don't know because you don't see much of it. But either way, she's like saying, what are you doing? Waiting for Batman to come save you? Because he's clearly not here. I am. And
I think there's like a whole subplot that's kind of left out too, in a way. Like she was trying to, she's out there saving all these women and not the men. And that was probably going to be a part of it. I don't know if it was something that was just left out eventually, or I doubt it was ever even made it to the final script. But probably like you can definitely tell it there was going to be some kind of like almost competition between the two of them probably at some point.
That would have been cool. Yeah. You know, because Batman at this point, like in Batman's career, he's not a guy that goes out on patrol. He answers to the signal now,
Yeah.
pretty much, and that can change the dynamic of the city. So maybe there's still street crime growing up, and Catwoman's like, okay, fine, there's women being victimized. I'm gonna save them. I'm gonna patrol and look for where that happens and keep an eye out and do something. And if since Batman's not going to do it, and then there you have that resentment there.
Yeah.
And then from there you could have a lesson where Batman's like, yeah, I can't just be working solely for the police. I still have to do the rest of my mission, which is, to save this city from.
And I feel like that might have been a part of the original idea, and it just kind of got.
Again, the script got rewritten a lot of
Yeah.
times before they began production. So, and I only have a couple of the original drafts, and they're rather different. This draft also had the introduction of Robin as well, because they tried to do that in the first Batman, and they cut it.
And then Munchkin sends in another £5. Thank you so much. Says, do you think Danny Elfman's score shaped the future of Batman atmosphere? Oh, clearly. That was one thing that carried over almost completely untouched from the movies to the animated series.
Danny Elfman and Shirley Walker composed the first two Batman film stuff together. Elfman's like the primary one. Shirley Walker helped with the orchestra stuff. And then she moved right over to the animated series and just blew that out of the water. It was great. I have that soundtrack. It's like a 4-volume set.
Yeah, I have the extended and the originals of both, and I don't have the animated series stuff. I don't know what's out there though, but
it is fantastic. There's a couple of other composers in there, but it is fantastic. It's a soundtrack.
I wish that was one thing that carried over into the newer films. Like I would have had no problems. That was one of the things I did kind of like about Justice League was Elfman come back and do the
brought in. Yeah, he brought in some of the original sounds for those characters. Yeah,
I wish it would have had more of it actually.
Same.
Because to me, those two themes just scream Batman and Superman, right? Like those two,
they're definitive, essentially.
Yeah. Like I don't care. Like even if that was Bryan Singer's whole reason for doing the experiment he did with Superman Returns, I wish somebody at some point would have just told him, dude, you can reboot it and probably still use John Williams' score and nobody's going to fault you. You know that, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I don't think that was the reasoning, but I think he just wanted to tell a Superman story without having to tell the origin again. But I digress. No, I agree with you 110% here, Munchkin, or I don't know if you agree, but I do agree with the sentiment of the question anyway. Yeah, I totally did.
If it didn't shape it, it definitely complemented it exactly as it needed to.
It is its own character, right? Like it's almost like it is part of it. Kind of like how Star Wars and Superman all, they aren't the same without their score. I would say the same thing here. Elfman's score was one of those things that, and I think that's what sold it for my dad, to be honest with you. Because, my dad was definitely of the Adam West generation. Na Batman. Yeah. And of course, him hearing the Prince single at the time didn't help. No. Because, of course, Prince mixes in a lot of that shit.
Well, especially in the Bat Dance stuff.
That's what I'm saying, because that was the big single at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Even though Electric Chair is probably one of the best songs on that album.
Oh, that album's amazing. I'm not gonna, but no, like the big single that came off that was Bat Dance, and that was on the radio constantly. Yeah. So like that was kind of what everybody had as an idea, and I'm sure my dad was still expecting it to be a little campy. And then when the movie was just over, he was just like, "Whoa," he kind of liked that, and he didn't really like any of them after it though. He likes the first one, but that music was one thing that he always gravitated towards right away. He just loved that music, that first swelling score, and I think that set him up perfectly, and I think it set us all up perfectly. But just coming from a perspective of somebody who never ever who had grown up on the Adam West, as opposed to me, where it was like it was there in the background, but it wasn't really like me. My Batman was more so the animated Super Friends Batman. So
like I grew up with the Adam West one because that's what played on the TV.
Right? Yeah, I saw it, but to me, it was like, how do I put it? To me, that felt almost more kiddie than the cartoons did.
I mean, the thing is, like, it can seem presented for a kid show, but like I watched.
I didn't come to respect it until later in life.
It was super popular with adults when it premiered. Like that's the thing. Like the majority of the people that watched Batman on television was an adult audience because it had some very funny grown-up humor that the kids wouldn't register, but the kids watched it too. It was a very family show, and they did over 100 episodes in the first 3 seasons, which is like remarkable
Yeah, they did a good job with that show. I thought it was great. Not like I said in retrospect, but when I was a kid, I just didn't get a chance to see it a lot because also it didn't help that when I was growing up, the quote unquote cable we had was barely cable. So I didn't have
Right.
like Nickelodeon and shit like that would show it.
No,
There,
well, yeah. I mean, you have to be lucky enough to connect to one of the affiliates that had that type of stuff. Like when I was growing up, we had an affiliate in Canada called CKVR. So they played classic Star Trek,
yeah.
Columbo, Quincy, the old Batman, Green Hornet, Wild Wild West, like all of those '60s shows, and then like Brady Bunch and the Partridge Family and all that stuff, like back to back. Then All in the Family, all on that like affiliate network, and like that's just what I watched growing up because I didn't want to watch all the kids
Well,
stuff.
basically, unless it was on WGN, which was Chicago Superstation, or TBS, which was Atlanta
Turner
Superstation.
Broadcasting, yeah.
Yeah, unless it was on one of those, I wasn't lucky enough to get to see that kind of shit. But there was a small time when our local Fox channel did show Batman's on Sundays. They showed an hour block, and it was so early I'd usually miss it. But that is because you may have heard me tell this story before, but I associate the song "Help" by the Beatles with that show more than anything because they would show an ad during all the cartoon blocks for Batman on Sundays, and it would always use the Beatles' "Help" song, and it would always be cut to montage of Batman and Robin being stuck in their
Whatever trap they had at the end.
Exactly. It was just a montage of a bunch of them cut to "Help" by the
That's
Beatles.
awesome.
Yeah, so like I've always associated that song with that show, even though I didn't really get to watch it much growing up. But then when I got older and we moved and we got Nick at Night Nickelodeon, it was on all the time, especially after the movies came out. Like I remember Nick was showing it like every goddamn day, 12 times a day after the first movie came out. So I got well acquainted with it after that. But prior to that, I had very little like exposure to it. So, but then Munchkin has another question. Do you prefer the Batman Returns Batmobile or Nolan's? Oh, the original Batmobile any day of the week over Nolan's. I hate Nolan's Batmobile.
Nolan doesn't have a Batmobile. He has the Tumbler. It's a tumbler. It's a tank. It's like off the line. That's what it looks like. It looks like off the military line.
It's because
like,
it is.
It is, yeah. Like the Batmobile looks like, there's only one of those.
No, that was actually a vehicle where they did very little to it. It was a vehicle that existed, and they just used it in the movie and painted it black, basically.
Well, I mean, it was based off another vehicle because Nolan had one of his special effects guys build a model of it, and then that's how he pitched Batman, and that's what they bought it based off of.
I just thought it was
silly.
Which
I thought was the first red flag that Warner Brothers doesn't know what the heck they're doing. It's like we're gonna totally let you do this movie series based on the car you picked. It's like, okay. I mean, he got lucky, but I mean, it was not.
The first two are okay, especially the second one. But outside of that, Munchkin, though. That's my answer, and I'm assuming you picked the same.
Heck, I've driven the Batman Returns, like a replica of the Batman Returns Batmobile. I've actually got photos of me standing from the one they used in the movie when it went on exhibitions. Yeah. So they in '91, before the debut of Batman Returns, the Batmobile would be showing up at theme parks and stuff, and it was the one used on set. And I remember like one of the stunt drivers was there, and you had pictures with him and Michael Keaton and the directors and stuff by the Batmobile, and that was the one that he drove, and it was really cool. And it's a big car.
That's the one that Jeff Dunham has now.
Jeff Dunham might have one of them. Yeah,
I know he has like one of the closest to the originals. I know that.
Yeah.
Like he paid a god-awful amount.
The replica one that I drove had an iPad console in it.
Then this was probably his. I think his is it's either made from one of the chassis of the original or it's from Batman Returns. I can't remember which.
Probably I think this is from Batman Returns because the one that I drove was the replica that this car guy who has all these.
Yours was probably one of the ones that was out front of Six Flags because they had like 3 or 4 of them that they would have out front of Six Flags. I know.
The one that I drove? No, that was a privately owned one.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I know a few guys who have made like their own or whatever.
Yeah. This is a guy who he rents out classic cars to film studios in Canada, and he built his own Batmobile based off all the specs, but he put in because this was like right when like the iPod and the iPhone just launched, and they got like the first iPad, and he rigged that up in there so he could like do all the bat sounds and stuff. When you
Well, I
flip
can't
switches.
remember what show it was on, but it was one of those like auction shows or something like that. And Jeff Dunham come rolling up in the Batmobile, and they were talking about it, and they had mentioned that it was one of the closest to the original. I can't remember. I think you're right. It might have been one from Batman Returns, because then they talked about the other 2 or 3 that are actually out there that are considered official, but they're actually the ones from like Six Flags or whatever.
Yeah, like there's the replica ones that are at the theme parks, and then there's the ones that were used in the stunts, which
there was one that was given away to a fan too, but I can't
there's
remember
one
if that
given
was
away.
a functioning one though.
I have no idea, but I do know that there were a handful of ones that actually drove, and then there was a bunch of stunt ones that did gimmicks and stuff. But the stunt ones I think were recycled or archived somewhere. And then there's the display ones, the replicas that went to the theme park. So there's one for like Six Flags, there's one for like Wonderland.
If someone knows, it might be that
Gardens.
one, the fan one that Jeff Dunham has, because I think that was given away for the second film, if I'm not mistaken, through Coke, if I'm not mistaken. It's either Coke or MTV gave it away. I can't remember which. But I remember seeing a commercial for it like about 2 months ago.
But yeah, there's lots of people that have built their own because all the specs are out there. There's another dude in Southern Ontario who dresses up as Batman and drives around the Batmobile, and he visits children's hospitals and stuff.
There's somebody that also has one of the original 66 ones too, or whatever.
Oh, there's like a dozen of those.
Yeah,
most of them are like
somebody
run
who actually
down.
has the original ones though.
Yeah, the Futara, the 1952 Futara, converted into a Batmobile, which would be awesome.
Culture Casino sending in. Oh, speaking of that, actually seen somebody post for sale an old like 54 hearse.
Yeah.
And what is the first thing I thought of?
Dragula?
No. I could turn that bitch into an ectomobile.
Oh, for a hearse. Oh, yeah. I mean,
the 1954 hearse, because I think the one in the movie is a 57. I think
it's a 59 Cadillac, but it was used
Cadillac,
for it's used for hearses, but also ambulances.
I know, but it was like the same kind of make, though, right? Like with the fins and everything. I'm like, oh, you could totally turn that into an ectomobile.
Well, what's funny is that for the Cadillacs that were made into the hearses, they removed the fins.
No, this actually had the fins still on it.
Yeah, but the ones that were for the ambulance, but the ones for the ambulance, they kept the fins. I always found that kind of weird. Like, oh, for the ambulances, they kept the fins, but for the hearse, they got rid of them. That's weird.
It might have been an ambulance. Maybe that's what I was thinking. Either way, it was the one that's like looks almost like it's not quite. It's more boxier than the original.
More boxier, but it's really close to it. Yeah,
it's close. Yeah, it's obviously a few years older. But anyway, Culture Casino's in the house. How you doing, buddy? Says here's some love. Having super fun Windows issues. Oh no, I know there was some updates. Andre was having issues with StreamYards because he was using Opera, but now that's updated, I guess. So do you talking like actual Windows, or you mean your browser? But that's a good question. But I think we've just about beat this one to death. Was there anything more you really wanted to talk about it? I mean, I preferred the first costume. I think that was something I wanted to bring up, but this is still one of the next best costume in my opinion.
Yeah, well, this one's just kind of more military, or not so much military, but more like mechanical, because it doesn't have like a six-pack abs. It's got like a shutter on his waist. But I do like the symbol better. It doesn't have that weird flare thing around.
I like the flare. See, I was more with the flare. And there was a version of this costume that I've seen production photos where they did have the original bat or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But they switched it to this one for some reason. I think it was at Warner's request.
I think it was because the marketing team used the gold emblem like that we see, throughout all the other Batman stuff. But the movie doesn't have that on there, and people kind of complained like, well, why does the symbol look like this, but the suit this one? And Warner's like, okay, let's just keep it one or the other. And they kept.
Well, I heard there's a reason for that.
Yeah,
I guess every time they redesign the bat symbol, whoever it is that redesigned, because they try to keep redesigning it as much as possible.
Well, Warner Brothers copyrights every single one of them.
Exactly. So like then every time they copyright it, it gives it a little more life or something like that. Yeah, I heard some about that, but that's one of the reasons why. The first film they encouraged it. The second film they just wanted them to go back to the regular one.
Well, nobody bought the flared ones, merchandise stuff. I
never found any of it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I honestly that's my favorite bat symbol, the one with the 3 prongs at the bottom.
That was like supposed to be like the legs.
The little feet sticking out. Yeah, I prefer that one. And the only time I ever saw that on anything as a kid was if you bought that really expensive rubber mask. That was the only thing that ever seemed to have it on it. But now as I'm older, there's tons of toys that have it. But
yep.
Munchkin, thank you again. It's like you pretty much
sponsored the show.
Sponsored the show outside of a few others, but thank you so much. Says really enjoying the series. Here's to many more episodes. Well, next week I was just going to get to that. Next week we got a big movie we're going to talk about. It's not a Christmas movie, but we hopefully we'll have some special guests here. I'm waiting to confirm on that. But we're going to hopefully watch Road Warrior. At least that's the plan right now, unless something changes. We'll try and let you guys know as soon as possible. But that is the movie for next week. So other than that, you guys can keep shooting in your suggestions. I saw them last week, and I've been keeping notes on them. So we'll definitely try to keep them all in mind. Yeah, other than that, Script, was there anything else you wanted to say before we went about Batman Returns?
Gosh, no. I mean, great soundtrack. Decent. I mean, a decent script, but a really, really good cast that actually elevates the script, because again, it's a B-rated A movie. It could have been
definitely
better. But again, you know, certain aspects of that time are difficult to do. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun film. I understand why a lot of people like it more than the first one. I still really enjoyed the first one for a lot of other reasons. But this is a great one to watch, especially around the holidays, because it is a Christmas movie, in the same way Die Hard is a Christmas film. It takes place at Christmas. It centers around Christmas. The kids are kidnapped before Christmas.
They're at a Christmas party when the kids are kidnapped. I mean, I would still say that Die Hard probably leans a little bit more into the Christmas, but this movie definitely plays with the Christmas element for sure.
Yeah.
SXHBK, this is one that a lot of you have requested. I'm gonna tell you this right now. This is gonna be one of the first ones we do after a bit here, because this one constantly gets brought up. So
yeah, Teen Wolf is great.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about Teen Wolf soon. And Last Starfighter is probably one of the second most brought up ones. So those two are definitely on the early docket here. But we want to save some big ones as well for later too. But so hopefully next week we will have a special guest join us, or maybe two, for Road Warriors. So we're going to talk about that next week. And until then, I want to thank Script Doctor for his time, and I want to thank you guys for listening. And hopefully you enjoyed our conversation on Batman Returns.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get our